Happy Sunday, all you Minties. This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and join me for a retro view of Jack Kirby's Kamandi, the last boy on Earth Omnibus from DC Comics. So, stay tuned. And welcome back to today's retro view. And the retro views here on the channel are when I take a book off of the shelf and do an overview of it, because a lot of you all have asked me about these particular titles. This one here is Jack Kirby's Kamandi, the last boy on Earth Omnibus. It came out originally in 2018. It had been previously released as a couple of archives and then a couple of omnis, but it was like their smaller scale omnis. This was a completely different rehaul with a brand new forward. So this here is the cover by Jack Kirby, and then the spine of the book with the Kirby logo that they were doing for his 100th birthday anniversary. And then Kamandi Omnibus by Jack Kirby, a picture of Kamandi there with the DC logo. And if you saw my overview of the Fourth World, the spines line up perfectly with the Kirby picture up at the top. It's a nice touch. Nice. I don't know why I did that. But anyway, here is the back of the book retailing for $125. And let's take this dust jacket off to get a better look at it. So here are the flaps from inside of the dust jacket. Things unbelievable but true. Cataclysm, Jack the King Kirby. A bio on him. And you'll also find a bio inside of the book here. And this kind of gives you a quick little rundown as to what Kamandi is. But I really like the design of these dust jackets. Underneath the dust jacket is this double page spread of Kamandi with Jack Kirby right there, and then Kamandi by Jack Kirby Omnibus. So it's different than the spine that you find on a dust jacket. I like when they do that, and I love when they blow up art like this. Makes it look like pop art, and you can see all the little color dots that make up the different colors and tones. Alright, so let's crack this book open and talk a little bit about the premise without giving too much spoilers, even though this book is, oh my goodness, since the 70s, so it's old. But talk a little bit about who Kamandi is. Alright, let's get this open. We have some end sheets here, black end sheets. Really thick is what they like to use at DC during this time. Kamandi, the last boy on Earth. And here are your credits. Omnibus by Jack Kirby. I love that they give him that much of a spotlight. Written by Jack Kirby. And Jerry Conway does do the last couple of issues, including editing some of the last couple of issues. Pencils by Jack Kirby. Inks and letters by Mike Royer and D. Bruce Berry. And the cover art and original series covers here. So Joe Kubert does step in and do some of the cover art. And here's your table of contents where you will find each of these issues. There is an introduction by Mike Royer, who was the inker. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. But what I wanted to point out was this picture right here. So just keep that in mind when I talk about this. Is that when I was younger, I was a foolish child. It wasn't until my 20s that I got into Jack Kirby's artwork. I was not a fan of any of the old guard's art. I didn't care for Joe Kubert. I didn't care about even John Buscema, Jack Kirby. I was a teenager and I loved dynamic artwork over muscular dudes, super sexualized women. Not that you won't find that in here, but it was just everywhere. So, like the image artist of the time. I was blown away by that art. I still love John Byrne, coming from X-Men or Paul Smith. But to me, I didn't really care for the old guard. And it wasn't until I was in my late 20s that I started to learn to appreciate all these old artists. And then when I got into my 30s is when I really, really enjoyed what Jack Kirby did for comics. And looking back at it in retrospect, looking at this picture reminds me of something that Ed McGuinness would have drawn today. Or looking at this picture right here would have reminded me of something that Rick Leonardi would have drawn today. And the inspiration that he had on different artists is just found everywhere. It could be found in one page, and all different types of pictures that some artists would look at different ways. Jim Lee could have looked at a panel and be inspired by it, and on the same page, Mark Silvestri would have looked at another panel and been inspired by it. And it's just crazy to me why it took me so long to appreciate his art. And maybe it comes with age, I don't know. But then again, it was kids reading the Silver Age comics. But that's what I wanted to talk about really quick and point out those two pictures. And then, of course, this wonderful, beautiful introduction by Mike Royer, who was asked to be his inker when Kirby moved to California, and he wanted somebody close to him instead of having to mail out his art. And he asked him to come along to DC. So this is after Marvel broke his heart, and he wanted to have more creative control. So he went to the Distinguished competition and created this entire franchise called the Fourth World. So the New Gods, the Forever People, wrote Jimmy Olsen, and introduced us to a bunch of characters. He also worked on another project called the OMAC Project, or just OMAC, sorry. And then we had this, and this is Kamandi. And if you know much about my channel or anything about me, I'm not a fan of this era of comics from DC. The Golden and Silver Age, the way stories were done at DC, I've tried. And actually I sold my Omnis of my Silver Age stuff and my Golden Age stuff. Or, I'm sorry, my Golden Age Omnis, and then some of the archives that I used to have from the Silver Age. But for some reason, Kamandi always was just okay with me. Sure, if you look at it on the surface, it is a complete ripoff, and purposely so, of Planet of the Apes. You have this young boy named Kamandi, who is the last man on Earth, the last boy on Earth, and Earth is just you have all these anthropomorphic beings that are smart and consider themselves the top of the food chain now, running around with guns like Planet of the Apes, and they're capturing what they know as animals. By the way, he comes from this bunker right here called Kamandi, where he lived with his grandfather. So we don't know if that's his real name, at least in these 40 issues. I don't think I ever learned if that's his real name or not, or if that's what his grandfather would just call him. But he is just trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic world where something called the Great Disaster has happened. So the years are done AD, after disaster. And it's just him. He'll run across some human beings that can actually talk and are smart like him. And he'll make friends with some of these mutants. Not X-Men type of mutants, but these anthropomorphic animals. So this story always spoke to me. And it was basically because I would see this picture of issue number 1 just everywhere. And I was always curious about that. And the Statue of Liberty in the background, and just this post-apocalyptic world. What's this last boy going to do? Because in my head, I thought he was just by himself, living in this world that nobody inhabits. But it's not like that. There are humans here, and there are these anthropomorphic animals. Now, some of the things in here are explained as to how they perhaps got smart. And like I mentioned, there are other human or humanoid creatures in here that he becomes friends with. Cosmonauts, Ben, right there. And then eventually becomes friends with anthropomorphic, some of them, animals. There's a giant grasshopper in here. There's all kinds of just fun stories in here. But like I mentioned, it was an era that just I wasn't fond of. But for some reason, this one stuck out. And I had the 2 mini Omnis and then sold them when I saw that they were coming out with this. And I've told this story on my channel before. Yeah, how you doing, lady? Man, and I think that's another thing I've learned to appreciate. It's the fine ladies that Jack Kirby would draw. Whew. My goodness. Where was I? Oh, yes. So, this omnibus, Amazon made a mistake and had it originally for like $32 or $28. And what happened was they canceled all the orders. Of course, the price was wrong. And DC ended up changing the ISBN. So, if you watch my channel on Saturdays when I tell my stories, I tend to, I tend to get Amazon to honor their prices. So I did again and ended up getting this for $32 after talking to just a couple of people. Really, it depends on the tone that you use with people sometimes, or, if you talk to the right person, they'll honor it, like they did the Amazon Omnibus glitch of 2010. But that's my story, why I ended up upgrading to this. I wasn't going to at first. I was happy with the 2 smaller scale Omnis that they had. But I'm glad that I did, because now that I'm in my 40s, I really appreciate art like this. And these spread pages are beautiful. And the way that they're framed out. I'm not a fan usually of this type of frame when it comes to double page spreads. But I'm okay with Kirby's because that's the way that it was done, so I'm okay with that. I actually don't like them in frames. I like the art to just spread out and use every inch, but you do get gutter loss in that, but I don't think you would get any in this book. So every one of Jack Kirby's issues here starts with a splash page, and then of course we get the double page spread. And I don't want to say every one of them has the double page spread, but most of them do. But all of them do have the splash pages. There is an issue in here, and it's issue 29. This one's pretty interesting because the whole time you think that, okay, well, Kamandi's trapped in this possible post-apocalyptic future. You don't really hear them ever talk about any superhero tie-ins, which is the way that Jack Kirby liked to introduce his characters. If you look at the Fourth World, with the exception of, I'm sure, Jimmy Olsen and the ties to Superman, of course, the Fourth World became its own thing, and he was trying to do the same thing at Marvel. And then when he came back to Marvel, he did the same thing with Eternals until, he was asked, hey, let's put Thor in these pages, or let's get some more superheroes in here. So there are a couple of exceptions, and I think the most popular one is this one from issue number 29, where he is competing for Superman's costume. So there's a competition for Superman's costume. And I thought this was a pretty interesting read compared to the rest of the series, because it does make it seem like, okay, well, this does take place in the DC universe. Now, I wasn't reading DC at the time, so I don't know outside of this. I think there was an issue of Brave and the Bold that he did show up in the 70s. I think, actually, no, in the third Omnibus, I think he shows up twice, so there were 2 issues at least. But I don't know if he ever showed up in Superman during this time or anything, because Kamandi is one of these obscure characters that most people didn't even hear of until the Kamandi Challenge that came out a couple of years ago, or Final Crisis, when he just kind of showed up, because Morrison just knows about every little part of the DC universe. The book has 896 pages, and basically the premise that I told you about, this young boy trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic future with anthropomorphic animals, whether he makes friends with some of them or whether he makes enemies with others. That's it. That is the basic premise. He's trying to find other human beings, but there's no time travel elements. There's not really that much crazy fantasy sci-fi in here. I guess comparatively to the pages of the Fantastic Four, with those comic book science explanations for some issues, not a lot of that in here. What I will say about this omnibus, let's go back a little bit, is that this one is very, how do I put it? Out of the 3 big creations that he had at DC, and I used the Omnis to talk about creations. I know, the Demon and all that, but what I was going to say, out of the 3 Omnis, I think this one is the least liked. Like, people don't like this one because of the dialogue, because of some of the art. I think it's awesome. I liked it. The art is mind-blowing at times. There's a lot of just spread pages in here that are completely gorgeous. The dialogue, okay, yeah. Kamandi's not a very likable character. He's kind of a wise ass and a little pompous at times. But maybe he's supposed to be like that. And compared to something like The Fourth World, I can see why this is probably a hidden gem out of this era. But I really enjoyed it. And maybe because I had heard so many people talk bad about this particular comic series is why I enjoyed it. I don't know. But yeah, expect that Kirby dialogue. It's not the best, It's not like when he worked with Stan Lee, but it still did its job. Now, he edited every single issue up until the 30s. And then you had Mike Royer supplying most of the inks in the first 18 issues. And then we had, look at that, Dee Bruceberry step in to do the rest of the issues that Mike Royer didn't do. But yeah, he was editing. He was in full control of this particular series. So let's actually get to issue 30. Actually, issue 32 has something really cool in it. So issue 32 is where you'll start seeing a change. But the reason I wanted to bring this issue up is because you get a little behind the scenes things back here. You get a little bit of actual Jack Kirby. There's these, yeah, right here, a man with a pencil. You get some photographs of where he lives. and then you get some of the artwork here. I thought that was really cool, but the coolest thing, because I love these things, I love when they throw maps in here, so this gives you an idea of what Earth AD looks like. And then we get to issue 33. Here on the cover you have Dr. Canis and Kamandi. And by issue 33, this is the last one that's written, drawn, and edited by Jack Kirby. And you'll even see a change in the covers. There'll be other cover artists in here. I think it starts with issue, 34 right here. So you'll see a different cover artist. This is, what is her name? Pyra, Pretty Pyra or something is what they end up calling her. And then you start seeing edited by Jerry Conway. As a matter of fact, now you have Joe Kubert providing the covers. This is where they go to space. And then by the time you get to issue 38, I believe, this is the final issue that's actually written by Jack Kirby, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so issue 38, this one here, you now have a new writer. And this collects the first 40 issues of Kamandi, but it's got every Jack Kirby drawn issue in this omnibus. They don't collect there was another issue that he wrote and drew, but that's not collected in here. The series did continue all the way to issue 59, and you had other writers step in, like David Anthony Kraft and Paul Levitz and Dennis O'Neil, but that stuff has never been collected. This stuff, at least that I'm aware of, I don't think they made it. I think they only did 2 archives, honestly, but this stuff is everything just Kirby did. The book has 896 pages. Let's take a look, and this is the final issue that's collected in here with the lizard folk. Let's take a look at the extras. So in the extras, you get a Bruce Timm introduction, which was one of the introductions to the original smaller Omnis. You get, there's Ben Boxer, I was talking about him earlier. You get the Who's Who right here of Kamandi and Ben Boxer, and then you get some of the art of Jack Kirby, un-inked stuff, before Bruce got a hold of it too. Just the amount of detail the man draws in every panel within it's just crazy. Then the bios on the fine folks that put this together. Like there's Jerry Conway and then Joe Kubert. Joe Kubert gets a big bio right there. But then again, it was Joe Kubert. Now, as far as the binding of the book, 896 pages, that is a big eye, and it is sewn binding. It's a beautiful presentation, what those spread pages look like at the very beginning and towards the very back. So, I don't know why I haven't picked up the OMAC project if I ended up enjoying this one in the fourth world in my 40s. But that, as they say, is that. The book is still in stock, so don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They pride themselves on packaging your books so they arrive safely in an excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. Check out the bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. CGN is excited to announce that they are now taking pre-orders. They're making it easier for you to ensure that you don't miss out on the hottest releases. CGN is currently running a special promotion for your Minties. If you're a first-time customer, let them know that you were referred by Near Mint Condition at the checkout, and you'll receive a credit for free shipping on your next order. This promotion is valid for U.S. customers only. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount and quality shipping and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you own this, if you've never read it or have heard about it, what your favorite Jack Kirby omnibus is. Is it OMAC? Is it the Fourth World? Or is it Kamandi? And should I pick up OMAC? For some reason, I still haven't picked that up. I have no idea why. But yeah, let me know in the comments down below if you love OMAC, and that's definitely one that I should be picking up. Again, this was the Uncanny Omar. If you have any questions, leave your questions down below. Smash that like button, ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. We are on Spreadshop and Patreon, amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. And thank you to our existing patrons. Could not be making videos like this without you all. And more importantly, everyone, stay healthy and safe, and much love.